April 12, 2022, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. And this indeed is the show you were looking for. How do I know so? Because you're hearing me say this.
Ochelli.com.
Revelation through conversation.
Second hour of the Ochelli Effect begins now at Ochelli.com, but you could be some other time, some other place, so welcome to you no matter where you are, even if the Mandela Effect got you. All right, so I have Christie Aphrodite with me, and we're going to talk about that little spot you just heard there from mytrueessence.net. That is Christie's site, but also ChristieAphrodite.com. I'm going to give you the links with the show notes if you're catching the podcast, but if you're listening to us live here on a Tuesday night just after 9 p.m. on the east coast of what they used to call America, you can call in. 319-527-5016. 319-527-5016. And you can ask Christie a question, or we can talk a little bit, whatever it is. We got her for about 55 minutes or so. So we'll see where we can get, and I think we have a subject in mind tonight, a topic, and we'll see what we cover. But if not, Christie's here every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So we'll try taking calls more. If you guys call in, we'll do it. How's that? And I know Jimmy James is waiting on the line, but first I got to ask Christie, how you doing tonight, sweetie?
I'm so depressed, Chuck. I heard there might be a show about that topic.
Yeah.
But I'm really, stuck on this Ed McMahon and Oscar Mayer and Berenstein Bears. Oh, my! How can I not be depressed after finding out everything I thought I knew is a total lie?
Well, let me just get this. I mean, I don't want to take up too much time, but Oscar Mayer, do you remember it? Now, I remember it with Mayer. Now, I know that little kid sang it, and he, wasn't speaking clearly. I don't know, maybe he lost a few of his teeth. But, I mean, so many people remember Meyer. Which one are you?
I actually think that I remember an A, but I can't be sure. And you're speaking to somebody who's had multiple TBIs. So I don't actually care what I remember or don't remember these days, and it's way more fun, right?
No,
because I used to get depressed worrying about not being able to remember things properly, or in things like, I don't know, Berenstein Bears. I felt a little bit of gaslighting going on there.
I'm not trying to gaslight anybody.
No, not from you. I'm just saying in general, since this whole Mandela Effect thing, started being talked about.
And that's weird, is that people get so worked up over it, right?
Right.
And that's the strange thing, is that people get worked up over stuff, and then they crash into a depressive state sometimes when they feel overwhelmed or defeated. And that is, one way that people enter into depression. But depression is a hard thing. We got a caller on the line, and again, 319-527-5016. And he said he had a question in mind for you. He wanted to ask you about something. He was talking in the chat room last week. So
cool. Go for it.
Yeah, let's clear up some old business here and give him a chance to ask you a question. So
all right.
Let's see. Jimmy James, you're with me, right?
I'm here.
All right. I know you're getting over the Oscar Mayer versus Meyer. I know you're getting over the Berenstain Bears. I know. But you had questions for Christie last week, so I wanted to give you a chance right away to ask him here. And look, if we don't get all the way through the depression talk tonight, just like depression itself, there's plenty of it. We can get to it more next week. But, so take your time, ask your questions that you had related to other health issues. Please, Jimmy James.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, my question, I have an awful time breathing. I have a deviated septum, even though my doctor assures me I don't have a deviated septum. And, I asked you about that peppermint, because so basically I want to breathe better.
Okay, so first, let me tell you about the deviated septum thing real fast. I supposedly had that as well. And I also had sleep apnea, and I went and I got the surgery and all that. I do not advise anybody to do that. It is a horror show, and there has got to be much more natural and positive ways to restore breathing, because it's tough when you can't breathe through your nose. So, Christy, let's just go with the premise. I mean, deviated septum's a weird term, because the septum being literally like the divider piece there in your nostrils, right? If it's deviated, it might be squeezed to one side, or it's just not straight, so you don't have a good way to breathe through it. And this can cause you problems. It can make you tired, drop your oxygen level, or you become one of those mouth breathers. That's not good. You don't get to use the natural filter of the nasal passages. This is a problem. So what can somebody do, without getting butchered like I did? They cauterized and burned and took out flesh out of my throat and my nose and all kinds of stuff. I didn't know any better back then. What is it that somebody could do naturally to try to get a bit more, access to air through their nose?
Right. Okay. So a few things. First, I have to start off with the disclaimer.
Yeah.
For everyone, I am not a doctor. Nothing I say is intended to be medical advice. In fact, don't listen to anything I say at all. And do not even attempt anything I discuss without discussing with your medical professional first. This goes to everyone, to everything that we discuss here. And that's simply because I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know pre-existing conditions. I don't know current or past medication, all of that stuff. So
nobody...
I will just say what I would do and throw out a few possibilities.
Some ideas. Some ideas. I'm sorry, some ideas. But here's the thing again. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all solution ever. And natural stuff. Look, again, Jimmy, you may have a situation where you have, high blood pressure, or you have medications that you take, or you have a regular intake of something that is not good to mix with something else. You have to be very careful, consult all of those things, consult your own best judgment too. But also, if you have a doctor involved in the equation, you got to check with them. I would check with a pharmacist, everybody you can, in fact, and every reference you can before attempting anything. Because delicate balances, something as simple as grapefruit juice, can kill somebody if you're taking the wrong medication. So, the wrong medication for drinking grapefruit juice anyway. Again, not advice, but these are ideas that can be useful if it all checks out. Okay, and that's how I would put it. Is that fair, Christy?
Absolutely. But I absolutely, I'm going to try to remember to give the disclaimer every time we talk about any type of natural solutions.
Right.
So that being said, and thanks for calling back. And if that was you in the chat and I missed your question, sorry. I did get back to it at, 2 a.m. or something like that. So I don't know the basis of your particular deviated septum or anyone who's listening right now. But what I do know is that there are certain things that can contribute to it, right? And so swelling and things like that, anyways, any type of swelling means inflammation, which means pain, which means problems, basically, to put it simply. Also, things like allergies or, what's the other word? Allergies, stuffy nose, things like that can also contribute to the issue. But honestly, practice is one thing that I think is kind of important before you take anything, right? And I know as a asthmatic and, my whole life, not being able to breathe totally sucks. Calling 911 and being hooked up. So I know it's not fun and a terrible feeling. Now, things that I would do are I would look into maybe a neti pot. I would also look into essential oils like peppermint and eucalyptus, and maybe even doing like a steam, what do you call that? Where you bring the water to the boil and then put the essential oils in and have a cloth over, put your head in and inhale it, right? Which may help clean things out. I would also go to my local-ish health food store and grab a bottle of H2O2. That's hydrogen peroxide, food grade, 35%. I would also make sure to not touch it and to be very careful because it will burn you or your skin. I would put that in my water, and I'm talking just drops. No more than 1 capful per gallon of distilled water is what I would do. And I would also add a drop of peppermint oil to each glass or bottle of water I drink from that gallon. In addition, I would also use those same essential oils like on my nasal passages because they will help reduce inflammation. I may even put them around like my cheeks and a lot of the same things that we talked about last week. And I would make anti-inflammatories, which are basically every single herb we talked about last week and probably again this week. I would make them part of my daily diet. Mm-hmm. I would clean out from my diet anything processed. And I know that's kind of a hard jump for most of us who, have been raised on processed foods our whole life. Right. So in order to accomplish that, I would take baby steps and eliminate one thing at a time and focus on what you're adding to your diet and how good it is for you rather than what you're taking away.
Well, another thing really quickly here, Christy, because you brought up the Medipot earlier and you talked about water. You got to be careful about what kind of water you use with a Medipot. Now, for me, a Medipot is very uncomfortable because ever since I had that surgery, it's very sensitive in there. The sensitivity never goes away. This very tender, kind of it's almost like as soon as something touches it, it's like I've been hurt. I blow my nose and it's an extreme pain sometimes.
Wow.
And that they told me to expect tenderness in there. And occasionally if you eat a piece of rice, it could get caught up in there and just be there for quite a while. Stuff like this, and I'm like, oh, that's pleasant.
Right. It's not for everyone, no. Clearly, yeah.
But to use a
you're right about the water thing.
Even,
sorry, Jimmy James, what?
And it didn't even help you, huh, Chuck?
Well, allegedly it protected me from having a stroke, is what it was, because I was doing the whole stopping breathing while sleeping thing. And they said, yeah, no reason to even bother with the CPAP machine and all that. You got to have surgery. So I went and had it done at the behest of my then wife, and was not a pleasant experience. You can't eat for 3 weeks. It's hell. My throat almost swelled shut because I got an infection. Whole thing. But back to the Medipot. You got to be careful. Don't just use tap water, obviously, in the Medipot, Christy, right?
Well,
absolutely,
no,
and that's why...
I'll confess, I did the neti pot thing once when I was living in an apartment.
Okay.
And I did buy the right stuff that they said to add to it at the store.
Right.
But I used tap water, and it totally congested me to the point that I couldn't breathe.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. You gotta at the very least buy a bottle of distilled water. If you don't know how to get clean water at home, buy it. and use that at least. And I think the packages on all the Medipots tell you this too, by the way. So it's not like I'm making something up.
Right.
Distilled water at the very least, it's got to be sterile. Because you don't want to introduce more bacteria or more things in there that are acceptable in your local drinking water into your nose. Believe it, seriously. I'm not kidding.
We have explosives in the water. Like, let's get real. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So sticking them in our cavities, or even in our mouth at all. Yeah.
Right. I would not advise it. And look, even if you drink it, I wouldn't advise putting it up in the nasal passages because they're more sensitive. And if you got a problem up there, then they may be more vulnerable as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't use the municipal tap is what I'm telling you for this. Okay. So go ahead, Christy. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to make that point about the Medipot.
No, I'm really glad you did. And I just want to point out that's why when I said that I would go buy some H2O2 and put it in a gallon of distilled water,
right.
Because again, you're dealing with explosives, right? Let's get real.
Right.
So I'm sure you've done those shows before, so we don't have to go over all of that for you. But yeah, water is essential, whether you're using H2O2 or shoving it up your nose or, stuffing it down your throat.
Right.
Yeah, so as far as things that may help sinuses, I mentioned peppermint and eucalyptus oil. Even things like cinnamon or clove and tea tree, maybe even firs, pines, balsams, etc. And if you don't have any of those, and I cannot fail to mention frankincense and thyme, and I think I already said cedar, and they'll also maybe assist with better, more relaxed sleep. And if you do not have the essential oils, you can also use infused oils, the same thing. And instead of putting things up your nose, because to be honest, my personal preference is less barbaric. I don't believe in pushing things in the outdoor. And that's pretty much across the board. So, but, some people swear by it and love it, and so that's just a possibility. But also infused oils or things or even compresses, and definitely the steam inhalation method. I couldn't come up with a name earlier. I have to admit I had a little bit of a nap a little before the show, because it's been a little busy, but steam inhalation is something. So those, and again, all the herbs we talked about this week and almost any herb we talk about will help to reduce inflammation and may help to reduce bacteria and viruses and other infectious particles that we may encounter through food, air, etc., whatever type of pollution we're living in. So if you can, also when it comes to your diet, just try to replace inflammatory causing foods with, anti-inflammatory foods. For brain oils, because your nose is, septum, it's part of your brain, right? It's right there. So things like rose, and again, I want to mention frankincense, even sandalwood, and the frankincense, myrrh, and sandalwood are pineal gland stimulators, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't feel that great when you can't breathe. And then getting back to, I mentioned the word practice. What I mean by that is when you're feeling fully relaxed, say lavender oil or whatever it is for you, right? Jasmine, neroli, etc. When you're in that relaxed state, you definitely don't want to do this at night, but consciously go outside, breathe fresh air, and I realize you're mostly breathing through your mouth, but I do know of people who have assisted their deviated septum by just practicing breathing through their nose consciously when they have the time. And while you're practicing, again, use things like a drop of peppermint oil on your nasal passages to assist with that. So those should all be pretty simple solutions. I'm sorry that you went through that surgery and all of that stuff, Chuck. But Jimmy James, right? That's your name?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how bad it is for you, obviously, but I hope some of these things can assist at least a little bit. And if, there's, again, I don't know your medical history, so I don't really want to mention, internal herbs or anything, right?
They call it chronic sinusitis.
Okay, so again, what you need to know is anything with the word itis or the suffix itis at the end of the word, right? Arthritis, tinnitus, tendinitis, bursitis. Any itis means inflammation. Mm-hmm. So we really, when we're diagnosed with any type of itis, we really have to look at the root of the problem. How many how many things are we consuming that cause inflammation, right? Whether it's soda or, whatever. We know what causes it and what takes it away. So, yeah, any itis, the first thing you can do is reduce inflammatories and increase anti-inflammatories, and essential oils should at least help minimize the pain and, in the process.
There you go. That's something always to note with the word, the suffix itis. That's very good. It's about inflammation again. Even the common like street sort of the itis, right, is inflammation of the belly, of the bowels from gas. So that's what that is. And so okay, very good. Did you have any other questions, Jimmy James?
No, that's so. If I remember right, you said the peppermint would pretty much. You'd have to smell it, right? I mean, it pretty much clears your nasal passages, kind of like
absolutely. I mean, well, no, I shouldn't say absolutely because we're all individuals. If I was in that position, then I would definitely reach for peppermint. That would be my first go-to. And again, I would rub it on my sinuses, my temples. I'd be careful with just like with water, what kind of essential oil brands you're getting. I happen to know a couple, and I'm one of them. And there are others that I'd be happy to help with as well, like Peppermint Jim. And yeah, so with that peppermint oil, you can not only put it on your skin, you can put it in your water that you drink daily, just like a drop or something. And the H2O2 may or may not help. Again, I just want to say add no more than 1 capful per gallon of distilled water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I just remembered another thing. Sorry.
Sure.
I make a blend, and this is not because I'm trying to sell it, but I'm going to give you the herbs, and I'm telling you about it because other people have told me. Now, first of all, I know it reduces coughing and inflammation and, inflamed bronchioles and things like that. So anytime I have a cough or inflamed nodes or anything, like that, then I will smoke a blend of herbs. And I'm just talking one hit. You definitely don't have to fiend it. none of these are drugs or hallucinogenic. They're not going to get anyone high. But I mix mullein, mugwort, wormwood, and depending on whatever else I can get, you can actually smoke mint, if you didn't know that, and lavender, and they're all anti-inflammatory. Also sage you could put in there if you wanted to. But those are always that blend or a variation of that blend has been helpful in every type of respiratory or stuffed nose condition for me.
What do you think? What do you think about making a tea out of that sort of combination?
Well, you can definitely make a tea out of it, but it's going to be bitter, which in a way is good because we do need more bitter foods and things in our diet. But if it is too bitter, add some hopefully local raw honey and whatever you need to make it taste better. If you mix it with mint, then that will offset the flavor a bit. Citrus if you wanted to add lemon or lime and honey. But yeah, you can definitely make a tea with those herbs. But I'm not going to guarantee they're going to be delicious.
Well, no, but you can play with a combination of things as so long as you know they're safe for you. Like we talked about vanilla beans last time, and I love vanilla. It's one of my favorite anythings. So, you could use vanilla beans, couldn't you? In order to change the flavor, and vanilla also has healthy aspects to it that can be quite useful.
Right.
I'm saying that you could make a combination of these things. And,
absolutely. Yeah. I would add cinnamon, clove, ginger, and anise in that same combination, and maybe even a nutmeg, and definitely the vanilla. So absolutely, play with it, see what you like, because obviously you have to like it or you're not going to do it. So I want people to take their medicine in a way that's enjoyable, which I kind of refer to as pampering yourself while healing. So surrounding yourself with these aromas, and while those scents, this was what I wanted to say, not just smoking it yourself. If you have somebody around you, other people I know have used it for infections, ear or other oral infections, and their partner smoked it and blew it on them, and those issues went away. So there's a couple more possibilities of things that you might consider trying.
Little secondhand smoke from the herbal.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that was all respiratory medicine until 100 years ago. So, I'm definitely not against smoking, unless it's like crack or commercial cigarettes. Yeah.
No, totally understand. I'm just saying that, no, and this is the way that the natives would deliver some of these medicines to one another, is exactly this way.
Right.
So, and some of them still do it. And today you have inhalers and all this other stuff, and I get it. They have their uses. Your albuterols and all that. I get it. I've had to use them. In the past, I used to have plenty of breathing problems. I found that a lot of my breathing problems actually came down to emotional issues.
Yep. We're going to go there.
Which is,
as soon as you let me.
I meant to go there, but I wanted to cover this for Jimmy James, and unfortunately we took up like half of your time doing it, but it's
That's
very
okay.
necessary.
We'll continue. There's no hurry. We'll just next week or whatever.
We'll just keep rolling on with it. But you got anything else, Jimmy James?
No, that's pretty much what I was interested in. I appreciate the time. Sorry for taking up so much of the show. I didn't plan on that.
No. It's not. You're not taking up too much of the show. It's meant to be as it is. Anybody who calls in will take the same time with a question and let Christie answer it every which way she wants. We're not in a rush. Okay?
Yeah, and so even those herbs, if you don't want to smoke them and you don't want someone else to smoke it and blow it on you, then smudge them.
Well, because as we said, last week, you can always find a way to eat them. I mean, there's ways of eating some of these. Not everything is good to eat, but some things you can mix them in and you can make something, however it gets there. It works, right? So, Jimmy James, you have something you want to add? Good.
Oh, yes. So if I already smoke a different herb, I could add that H flower. What's it? Harem?
Oh, which,
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding.
I think what he means to ask is that, he partakes in some cannabis, say.
Okay.
And he wants to combine something with his cannabis. What about
Dude,
that?
just here. I'm going to put a link here in the chat, and I'm going to send you some of this, and look at the ingredients, read the reviews, and read the reports from PubMed.gov, and contact me. I'm sure you and Chuck know each other, so Chuck has my permission to give you my information.
Okay.
And here, let me get this link here, and totally mix that with your weed. It's just a bunch of weeds, right? So you can mix that and smoke it together. Absolutely. And another thing for inflammation, cannabis paste. It's not just smoking it. In fact, smoking it has the least anti-inflammatory properties than eating it. And just because I'm saying that, though, doesn't mean I'm saying go to your pharmacy and buy a bunch of edibles either. Right. Because then you're eating more anti-inflammatories, more sugar, more chemo, right?
Well, not anti-inflammatories. You're eating stuff that will cause inflammation by eating sugar.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I said that wrong.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
I got it. It's just if you're after an anti-inflammatory, you don't want to be counterproductive about it, which is the weird thing about a lot of medicines, like even cough medicines. They're loaded with, I understand why they put alcohol in there. It's to relax you a little bit. But all the added sugars seem counterproductive. I mean, some of those things are heavily, heavily sugared in order to make them tolerable.
Right.
But it's counterproductive in reality. The sugar is not good for inflammation. It just isn't. Anybody will tell you that. And I mean, you don't need to be a doctor to know it. Okay, it's just one of the things that happens. So it's counterproductive. Why fight against what you're trying to do? So if you're going to eat it, try not to add things that cause inflammation to what it is you're eating while you're eating your anti-inflammatory, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for correcting me. I told you I just woke up from a nap. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Yes,
it's
thank
okay.
you.
I just want to be sure that we're, good and clear on all this. So, Jimmy James,
that's why you're the professional.
Yeah, sort of. But it's okay. Jimmy James.
Yeah, and if you don't want to use a neti pot or rinse yourself out, again, you can just do a compress. So either with those teas we discussed, or even essential oils, any of those. I'm sure, you're like, okay, that was a lot. Which one do I start with? So if you want to, again, contact me after the show, and then I'll figure out how to get you some of this ceremonial blend for you to try. And that might, be a good way to get your feet wet in herbs. In fact, it has been like the number one way to get most people who were, and maybe not anti-herb, but just thought it was all foo-foo. But then, the relief experience with this is instant and undeniable. So, I'm going to send you some so you can try it. And, if you need anything else or whatever, let me know. I do have oils and such.
There you go. So, can't ask for more than that. What I'll do is, Jimmy, I'll give you an email and with the information right after the show. Okay.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Christine. I am going to try those things.
All right, thanks for calling.
Excellent. Yeah, Jimmy James listens to a lot of the shows on the network, and just talking to him personally, I know he's got issues that are, what I guess chronic is the best way to put it. So this would be very helpful to him. And
yeah, we'll discuss, and then off the air, then hopefully we can, I can know more about his personal things, so I don't give any potentially harmful advice.
Right. No, but that's the thing, is you have to know, look, you got to know your circumstance. You got to know what the problem is. We talked about evaluation last week. So, you can check into that. The earlier shows, obviously, they're on my website. And, Christie, I don't know if you're putting them up on yours, but you're free to always. And they're very important to evaluate things properly to begin with. You got to know what it is that's causing you the problem. You got to at least get an idea. And you got to know what's coming in and what's coming out of your body for sure. So,
absolutely.
And again, you don't want to contradict medicines that you're taking or other things that you're habitually using one way or another. Not necessarily drugs. I know everybody hears habitual. They think drugs. I don't mean drugs. What I'm saying is that you could be taking in a massive amount of sugar and causing your own inflammation because it's way too high a level of sugar.
Right.
And
right.
You could just solve some of the problem by reducing sugar. Now, I don't know. I'm not giving medical advice, obviously, but who is going to argue with me about reduce your sugar intake in America, right? I mean,
not very many smart people. And I also just, the P words and the P foods are also good for like brain and sinuses and with anti-inflammatory properties. So P foods like pineapple, papaya, pumpkin, even potatoes, especially sweet potatoes, and then other brain foods like that also contain anti-inflammatory properties, such as berries, brassicas, the things that we talked about last week when talking about brain health. So if they look like your brain, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, etc., berries, I would try to find ways to introduce that into my diet.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it again. And we were going to get in a bit deeper into depression and all that. I think we should save it for next week and continue on with this a little bit more, because this was a good area to go into. And again, we're going to take our time here. If it takes 2 weeks to do something, 3 weeks, whatever, that's the way it's going to go. And Christie said we're just going to do this from now on for a while. And, I appreciate you taking the time. And again, I'll put you in touch with Jimmy after the show. If somebody else wants to call in, by all means do so. 319-527-5016. If not, you and I can continue to have a discussion about this deviated septum issue, because breathing. Let's just be very basic about this. If your breathing is challenged, if you're having a hard time breathing, well, that causes a variety of issues. And quite often we don't notice that we're having trouble breathing because in the first place, most people have bad habits with the way they breathe. Here's an example I'll give you. And this is something that a vocal coach would teach you. And is just something, I don't know why everybody is not informed of this, okay? Diaphragmatic breathing. All right? Christie, I know you know about this because you and I have talked about meditation and things like that. And I said, well, first thing you got to do is get your breathing in order, right?
Absolutely.
And it's not necessarily just about the proper way to breathe, although most people rather lazily are not doing it properly and they don't even realize it. But the other thing is to fully utilize your lungs, because your lungs, like any other part of your body, if they're not exercised, right, they don't remain strong. Now, they're not muscles. Lungs are not muscles, but they need to be utilized enough in order to keep them strong. I mean, it sounds a little weird, but you got an argument for this one, Christie?
No, I can't argue.
Okay, just checking. Just
I was actually looking for that breathing website I mentioned last week, and it's been a while, so it's taking me a second to to find it.
Well, take your time. I'll just fill here for a second, because a lot of people don't realize that they're sitting down or they're doing different things, and they don't really fill their own lungs very often. They don't really use the whole of their lungs. And again, if you do that for 30 years, it means that parts of your lungs are not real. They're not stretched. They're not ready to go. They might not necessarily atrophy like a muscle, but they don't function as well because you're not using them. You know, that's one thing that the body does. If you are not using it, it starts to shut it down and say, well, if it's not necessary, let's break this up. That's why muscles start to get broken up by the acids in the body. It's a natural reaction. That's how muscles atrophy from non-use. You know, like coma victims, right? Not only do they have to learn to walk again because of the brain problem or whatever, but the muscles have now been not utilized. I mean, they try to exercise people nowadays, but it took them a while to figure that out, because some people would come back out and couldn't use muscles because they were gone. So the thing is, if you don't use it, you lose it. Sounds like an old cliche, but it's true. So with the lungs, you have to utilize the whole of your lungs and visualize, actually, I would suggest, because this is what I do, visualize where the lungs are in your body. Okay? And try to make sure that from the top to the bottom and all around there inside of your rib cage that you're using all of it. Much as you can. I'm not saying strain. Don't hyperventilate. Clearly, safely, smoothly, inhale and use the whole of your lungs. If you start to do this more often, you'll notice that you can take in more and more air. Because, again, as the stretching process happens, it actually does stretch. It expands. Not just in the moment, but it'll stay stretched there, and you'll have greater lung capacity. Now, this, again, is something that was kind of taught to me a little bit for stage and stuff like that, but this is a useful thing in life. Keep your lungs strong. Now, you may have damage to your lungs because you had pneumonia and stuff like that. I've had damage to my lungs from pneumonia, and, well, I smoke, but there's never been noticeable damage from the smoking anytime I've had a scan. But anyway, pneumonia and things like that leave scars, leave parts of the lungs that are not functional. A lot of that can be repaired, not entirely, but a lot of that can be repaired simply by practicing utilizing the lungs fully and diaphragmatic breathing. So, Christy, did you find that site?
I did. I posted a few links in your chat. It used to be called breathing.com,
okay,
and now it's optimalbreathing.com. It's Mike White. It doesn't look the same as it used to, because it used to have, like, oh my gosh, thousands of articles. And so I'm just kind of navigating it and trying to look for that. But it seems like under the insights is where all the articles on breathing, he has a section on anxiety, panic, and stress, a whole section on oxygen, and different breathing techniques. So yeah, that's where we get back to practice. And I'm glad you brought up the atrophy thing. I mean, I don't know if anyone has ever, say, been on crutches or a wheelchair, had your arm in a cast. We just sometimes have to relearn, or maybe just learn for the first time the proper way. And, because breathing, it just kind of happens, and we've never been taught proper breathing techniques. So I'm positive if you don't find what you're looking for at optimalbreathing.com, there are even YouTube videos with different breathing techniques that can assist with that. I also failed to mention, dairy consumption, especially if it's, pasteurized and all of that stuff, right, that we get from a store, so cheese, milk, things like that, that is not going to help your condition in any way.
Right.
And last week we talked about allergies that we may not know we have, right? And the common ones, of course, are dairy products and gluten products, but I also want to mention it's not necessarily gluten itself. It's kind of what they've been adding to it, right? So commercially available wheat products, we kind of got to be careful with, especially with those issues. And since you brought up the mental health aspect of it, Chuck, I mean, and this is, you know what, I think it's great that we won't talk about, or we'll bring this topic up next week, the anxiety and depression, but part of that, see, what we're talking about right now are symptoms of unhealed trauma. So we can call it a deviated symptom, we can call it anxiety, we can call it depression. You know, we have all sorts of labels on what we're calling it, right? But we have the power to work through it. In fact, I mean, hello, Chuck is like one of the greatest superheroes out there, even though he won't tell you. And he didn't get there, you know, because of the perfect herb. He got there because he practiced and learned new ways to do things. And initially, just like myself, some of them we just thought they would help us cope and tolerate the conditions. And then accidentally it's like, oh, poof, they're gone. So practice, don't give up. You know, spend 5 minutes with yourself a day, focusing only on the breathing. And when it comes to trauma, okay, things like that, lung issues. Oh yeah, can't fail to mention mullein, which is excellent for the lungs. And I mean, I guess I kind of did in the smoke blend, but maybe you want to consider taking it a different way, whether it's tea or tincture. But grief is the number one spiritual, emotional / mental cause, deep root cause of lung and respiratory issues. So suppressed crying, right? And again, especially being a male, I mean, at least as a woman, I know we're all crazy, but at least we're allowed to cry, right? Because they expect us to be like crazy and emotional. But men, not so much. You've been taught since birth not to express your true feelings. So I would like to encourage you and anyone who's listening to get with yourself, you know, in your own personal time, whoever you talk to or pray to or meditate with or whatever practice you prefer. And with, I don't know, I guess they're all the same, just different words, right?
Right. And
but
here's the
really
thing.
get with yourself and try to, you know, see those things that you've been hiding from the world for what sounds like probably all of your life.
Right. And look, it's not a matter of, and now some people might hear that, especially guys, and go, you know, what am I supposed to do? Every time something upsets me, I'm going to burst out in tears and No, she's not telling you to do that. What she's telling you to do is to not just stuff it down.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you got to have, you choose where you wish to express things, okay? Do it in the space and the time and the place that you select, okay? You have control. You can take control. Now, I know that sometimes emotional outbursts happen. I've had them happen, believe me, when I didn't want them to. And quite often, a lot of that stuff, pain, I turned into rage earlier on in life. And it was destructive. It's just that simple. It became destructive. And the more I stuffed down, the more fuel I had to be destructive. So here's the thing. It's not a matter of, oh, you just got to, you know, cry at the drop of a hat, or, oh, I got to be all No. You do it in your time, in your space. You got to allow yourself. Okay? You got to give permission to that, because it is essential to vent things like that. And look, that's only a very basic, I mean, it doesn't matter. It could be sadness. It could be all kinds of things. I mean, I'm fine nowadays. Weird thing, because I spent most of my life with the idea that you don't do this in front of people in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
No, I don't have to accept those rules. I can choose who it is that I demonstrate these things to and who I do not. Okay? And that is a healthy way to take charge of it. You can take charge of it. You don't have to allow your emotions to take charge of you. But if you resist allowing them to even be acknowledged, this is where you're going to build yourself problems. And that's probably what we're going to have to get into next week because, again, depression is one of those things. Notice I mentioned, you can take sadness and pain and you can turn it into rage. That's very good and very productive in certain ways. But
absolutely. In fact, I wanted to kind of bring up the flip side of that, right? I know we're in society, we're taught, the anger's bad, but I actually vehemently disagree. There's a reason they don't want us to express or feel anger. And just like you mentioned, you let it turn into rage, and then it was the spark that caused you to go off on a path that you aren't on currently. Right. And that is, something that could happen, but conscious anger is the spark, the fuel we need to stop participating or doing the things that are keeping us angry or making us repress or suppress our emotions, right? So I just want to say this: everything productive in my life that I have accomplished was birthed by anger, whether it was radio or Project Love Your Neighbor or the Southwest Missouri Free School or My True Essence, or even, just my videos trying to teach people, whether it was anger at being poisoned and lied to through the medical system, or whether it was anger over being poisoned and lied to through the media or politics or things like that, right? So whatever that is insulting or assaulting your soul, you have a right to be angry, right? But where are we directing it? What are we doing with our anger? Are we going to let it fester and then come out in the form of, say, cancer or boils or cysts or even strokes? Or are we going to turn it into something positive? Like, hey, I didn't like that experience. I don't want to do it again. So this is what I'm going to do to fix it, right? Or remove myself from
so, again,
whatever that trigger is. So don't kick puppies. Yeah. Don't do road rage. Like, those are obviously negative examples of anger. But conscious anger is exactly the fuel that we need to stand up and say no. And that's exactly why society wants us to feel shame by even feeling anger. And, that's kind of probably why people don't stand up.
Well, and that's how they keep you docile. Remember this, though. And this is really key. And again, I feel like I'm speaking more to males. Okay, I know that's a bad term. I'm speaking more to men. Okay,
bad term.
Than I am to women, because women.
Well, you're not a biologist, Chuck.
I'm not, but I know I'm speaking more to men because I am one. So therefore, I get where I'm coming from. I don't understand. Listen, I don't understand women. Okay, there are certain points I'm clueless. I go, okay, I don't get it. That's it. I mean, I'm smart enough to go there, but I will tell you. That for guys, you need to understand something, though, about this. You're hearing Christie say, yeah, it's fuel and all that. It's a tool, but here's the deal. I'm not a super handy guy or anything, but I know something. I got a drill, I got a spanner, I got a wrench. All right, these are tools. Who's in charge when I'm trying to build something? I am. Okay, not the tools. Anger is a tool. That's how you got to put it. Anger is a tool. You don't always need a power drill to get things done, right? But it's a useful tool when it's time. So that's the thing. You're in control of the way the toolbox is used, all right? You get to choose what to put in it. You get to choose how to use it. That's how you use stuff like that. It doesn't have to dominate you, but don't just bottle it up, put it away, and forget where it is. Okay? That's a dangerous thing to do. And
honor every emotion. You know, that doesn't mean you have to be like, hey, everyone, look at me. This is how I feel right now. You know what I mean? And if you do have to express, right, make sure you're in a safe place with a trusted friend that you can talk to that isn't going to shame you for any of your feelings, right? Or blame you or judge you or any of those things. But Chuck, everything you've said tonight is so perfectly stated. And you know what, these are tools, and I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul, right? And for those who don't understand or know where that came from, that's Invictus, which has actually been super helpful to me in my dark nights and challenges and such in life.
Right. And you know what else can be helpful to many a person on a dark night is mytrueessence.net.
Oh, that was smooth.
So that, well, you know what's happening? We're actually done. Christie Aphrodite, again, ChristieAphrodite.com, mytrueessence.net. And I'm going to have to take care of something right after the show, but that's the way it is. And we're going to continue this discussion next week. Right, Christie?
Absolutely. I'll be here. Thank you.
Anyway, the Ochelli effect is all done. We ended up going from Mandela effect to don't hold down your feelings. Who knows? Maybe they're related, actually. We'll figure it out next week, I assure you. Anyway, again, thanks to all of you for listening. I am merely Ochelli, and all of you are indeed the effect.